Folks, welcome to the fourth branch program, the place for common sense. Today is Tuesday, June 25th, 2019. My name is Mike Duchesne, the host on the fourth branch program. If you're here for the first time, welcome to the program. And if you've been here before, thank you for participating to make this journey much lighter, much better. The fourth branch program is not associated with any political party. The ultimate objective is to perfect the union, which requires that ignorance be removed from the equation. This is how this program was conceived. We know that it's going to be a steep climb. We know we're gonna encounter many difficulties. But when we started the fourth branch program, we had one objective in mind. As I mentioned, to perfect the union. As such, we use a very noble principle by the first president of the United States, George Washington. It is far better to be alone than to be in bad company. As such, we rely on the fact that we will be able to surmount the is segment 1, in which we will continue to read the Mueller report. But from context to the reading of the report. Live from New York City, at the top of the hour, every weekday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The fourth branch presents discussions, debates, commentaries on social, political issues, current events, sports, entertainment, religion, education, science, and every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for a full presentation on controversial issues such as abortion, homosexuality, war on blacks. Are Republicans dumber than Democrats? Information which might irritate you, make you cry, make you laugh, but above all, will make you smarter. Join us every time. It is the right thing to do. It is the only way to keep your sanity in a world of chaos, hypocrisy, immorality, and deception. Welcome to Common Sense. Once again, welcome to the fourth branch program. The Mueller report was generated not by accident. It was not generated because someone decides, well, let's do a report on Trump. And nor is the Mueller report an exercise that's done for every president. The Mueller report was generated because in the 2016 presidential election, a foreign enemy, Russia, the United States of America, #1 enemy, interferes in our system of government. This is not a small matter. This can ignore. This is very serious. As such, the levers of our government charged to protect the nation, to protect our national security, sprung to action. Now, you may have received an invite which says Patriot only. It is not made for just we seem to have some audio problems, so bear with me. We'll be right back to continue with the conversation. Okay, I hope this, I apologize. It looks like we had some audio problem. It is fixed, right? Is it? Okay. I started saying that the Mueller report was generated not because it was every president exercise. It was not done by sheer accident. It was not something that someone decide, you know what, it's good to take a look at Donald Trump, but it was because America #1 enemy interferes in our system of government. Now, if you pause for just one moment and you put your Republican hat on the side and wear your patriot hat, it should not be difficult to figure out that that was necessary. It should not be difficult to figure out that was important, that was critical. since the existence of the Republic, especially for the past 100 years, the United States of America has engaged in wars across the globe. The purpose is to bring democracy to parts of the world that do not have it, to people who yearn for it, people under dictatorship, under authoritarian regime. The United States of America has made itself, at least our government has made itself, the police of the world. However, using one aspect of our system in order to justify involvement, intervention in other countries' affairs, but almost exclusively under the banner to bring democracy into that country. We spend billions and billions and billions of dollars of taxpayers' money. We borrow money to go to war. Literally, we borrow money. We've been borrowing money to go to war. And we put that burden on the taxpayers. We unload that burden on the taxpayers. But most importantly, we expand the lives of our soldiers, our personnel. People who left behind wives, spouses, who left behind children. Our government used those people in order to go to other countries, and we say to liberate those people from dictatorship, to liberate those people from authoritarian regime, and to make certain that that country, whichever the country happened to be, that country lives under a system of democracy. We spend our money, taxpayers' money, we spend our soldiers' lives, we split families for what seems to be a noble cause. It seems to be because obviously if you see someone on the street being attacked, being brutally beaten by another individual, I'm fairly certain most people would jump into action to defend the victim. So you would have said it's almost a human emotion that gets our government, although it is a little bit more complex than that. It's not really as simple as, because we know that when the government tells us that they're gonna do XYZ ABC, usually most of the things they try to achieve, at least people in the government, they simply spin the information for the public so that they can get the support in order to take the country to war. But let's stay within the superficial explanation provided to us by the government, because we can go really so spend of dollars, right, to go to war. We spend our soldiers' lives as well in order to bring democracy to other countries. But for mind-boggling reasons, we cannot come to the conclusion that is someone here in the United States, whoever that something to undermine our democracy, that person ought to pay a price for that, whether it's whoever, including Donald Trump. I don't know why it's so difficult, why a logic like that is so difficult. We waste, literally, because some of the wars we got involved in, we provoked those wars. We created those wars. Look at the Iraq war. And yet we still spend billions of dollars. We spend our soldiers' lives. We split families for a bogus war in order to bring democracy to Iraq. And yet here in the United States of America, it seemed to be a difficult concept to say the hell with whomever has caused that. So the interference of Russia in our system of election triggered the report. We will read the report next, and we'll make comment at the end as to what exactly is wrong with those who claim to be patriot, who claim to want to defend the Constitution, but at the same time doing everything possible to undermine our democracy. Why is that? When we return. If you are a patriot, you cannot not be outraged, because this is not a matter of being Democrat or being Republican, because the very reason that our democracy survives is because of that very structure of our government. The minute that you don't have any oversight, then at that point, the idea of democracy in the United States of America ceases to exist. So if you are a Republican and you think it's okay, then you too are no patriot. There is no other word of saying it. No matter what you hear people saying, trying to sugarcoat, trying to go around to explain it to you, that's all it means. If you are okay with what is currently going on with Donald Trump, with the Republican Party, you categorically are not a patriot. And no matter what you think of yourself, you are not a patriot. Because a patriot is someone who would give up, who would make sacrifice sometimes of his or her own life, let alone sacrifice a political party in order to preserve the democracy, in order to preserve the Constitution, in order to preserve the rule of law. So if you cannot do that, don't talk to anyone about being a patriot, because you are no patriot. post-election and transition period. Let's take a quick look at what Mueller said before we proceed with the reading. We'll just take a look at a snippet. You recall when after Mueller put the report, released the report to the Department of Justice, the DOJ, William Barr, the Attorney General, misled the whole nation, spin the report. So at some point, Robert Mueller found it necessary to clear the air and let the public know that what William Barr has been doing is not the job of the American people, but doing the bidding of the President of the United States. So Robert Mueller came out and make it very clear that the report did not exonerate Donald Trump, and in fact the report showed a lot of interaction between Russians and the Trump team. 117 people altogether, 17 of them were very close in the Trump camp, high level position in the Trump camp. So let's take a quick look at what Robert Mueller had to say, and we'll be right back to continue the reading of the Mueller report.
The order appointing counsel authorized us to investigate actions that could obstruct the investigation. And we conducted that investigation, and we kept the office of the acting Attorney General apprised of the progress of our work. And it's set forth in the report after that investigation, if we had had confidence that the President clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so.
Post-election and transition period contacts. Trump was elected president on November 8, 2016. Beginning immediately after the election, individuals connected to the Russian government started contacting officials on the Trump campaign and transition team through multiple channels, sometimes through Russian Ambassador Kislyak, and at other times through individuals who sought reliable contact with a person not formally tied to the campaign or transition team. The most senior level of the Russian government encouraged these efforts. The investigation did not establish that these efforts reflected or constituted coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia in its election interference activities. Immediate post-election activity. As soon as news broke that Trump had been elected president, Russian government officials and prominent Russian businessmen began trying to make inroads into the new administration. They appeared not to have pre-existing contact and struggled to connect with senior officials around the president-elect. As explained below, those efforts entailed both official contact through the Russian embassy in the United States and outreaches sanctioned at high level of the Russian government through business rather than political contact. Outreach from the Russian government. At approximately 3 a.m. on election night, Trump campaign press secretary Hicks received a telephone call on her personal cell phone from a person who sounded foreign but was calling from a number with a DC area code. Although Hicks had a hard time understanding the person, she could make out the words, quote, Putin call, end of quote. Hicks told the caller to send her an email. The following morning, on November 9, 2016, Sergei Kuznetsov, an official at the Russian embassy to the United States, emailed Hicks from his Gmail address with the subject line, quote, "Message from Putin," end of quote. Attached to the email was a message from Putin in both English and Russian, which Kuznetsov asked Hicks to convey to the president-elect. In the message, Putin offered his congratulations to Trump for his electoral victory, stating he, quote, "looked forward to working with Trump on leading Russian-American relations out of crisis," end of quote. Hicks forwarded the email to Kushner asking, quote, "Can you look into this? Don't want to get duped, but don't want to blow off Putin," end of quote. Kushner stated in congressional testimony that he believed that it would be possible to verify the authenticity of the forwarded email through the Russian ambassador, whom Kushner had previously met in April of 2016. He, unable to recall the Russian ambassador's name, Kushner emailed Dmitry Simes of CNI, whom he had consulted previously about Russia. See Volume 1, Section 4.A.4 Supra, and asked, quote, "What is the name of Russian ambassador?" end quote. Kushner forwarded Simes' response, which identified Kislyak by name, to Hicks. After checking with Kushner to see what he had learned, Hicks conveyed Putin's letter to transition officials. 5 days later, on November 14, 2016, Trump and Putin spoke by phone in the presence of transition team members, including incoming National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. High-level encouragement of contact through alternative channel. I have to mention quickly that we are making really great progress. We only have 50 pages left on Volume 1. And once we finish with Volume 1, we will obviously start with Volume 2. We began the reading a few weeks ago, and it's 448 pages from Volume 1. So we're making great progress. High-level encouragement of contact through alternative channels. As Russian officials in the United States reach out to the president-elect and his team, a number of Russian individuals working in the private sector began their own efforts to make contact. Peter Evan, a Russian national who heads Alfa Bank, Russia's largest commercial bank, described to the office interaction with Putin during this time period that might account for the flurry of Russian activity. Evan told the office that he is one of approximately 50 wealthy Russian businessmen who regularly met with Putin in the Kremlin. These 50 men are often referred to as oligarchs. Evan told the office that he met on a quarterly basis with Putin, including in the fourth quarter of 2016, shortly after the US presidential election. Evan said that he took these meetings seriously and understood that any suggestion or critique that Putin made during this meeting were implicit directive and that there would be consequences for Evan if he did not follow through. As was typical, the 2016 fourth quarter meeting with Putin was preceded by a preparatory meeting with Putin Chief of Staff Anton Vino. According to Aven, at this fourth quarter 2016 meeting, one-on-one meeting with Putin, Putin raised the prospect that the United States would impose additional sanctions on Russian interests, including sanctions against Aven and or Alphabet. Putin suggested that Aven needed to take steps to protect himself and Alphabet. Aven also testified that Putin spoke of the difficulty faced by the Russian government in getting in touch with the incoming Trump administration. According to Aven, Putin indicated that he did not know with whom formally to speak and generally did not know the people around the president-elect. Aven, the next word is redacted grand jury. Aven told Putin he would take steps to protect himself and the Alpha Bank shareholders from potential sanctions, and one of those steps would be to try to reach out to the incoming administration to establish a line of communication. Aven described Putin responding with skepticism about Aven's prospect for success. According to Aven, although Putin did not expressly direct him to reach out to the Trump transition team, Aven understood that Putin expected him to try to respond to the concern he had raised. Aven's efforts are described in Volume 1, Section 4.5 and from. Kirill Dmitriev transition era outreach to the incoming administration. Aven's description of his interaction with Putin is consistent with the behavior of Kirill Dmitriev, a Russian national who has Russia's sovereign wealth fund and is closely connected to Putin. Dmitriev undertook efforts to meet members of the incoming administration in the month after the election. Dmitriev asked a close business associate who worked for the United Arab Emirates (UAE) royal court, George Nader, to introduce him to top transition official, and Nader eventually arranged a meeting in the Seychelles between Dmitriev and Eric Prince, a Trump campaign supporter and an associate of Steve Bannon. In addition, the United Arab Emirates National Security Advisor introduced Dmitriev, an associate of in addition, the United Arab Emirates National Security Advisor introduced Dmitriev to a hedge fund manager and friend of Jared Kushner, Rick Gerson, in late November 2016. In December of 2016 and January 2017, Dmitriev and Gerson worked on a proposal for reconciliation between the United States and Russia, which Dmitriev implied he cleared through Putin. Gerson provided that proposal to Kushner before the inauguration, and Kushner later gave copies to Bannon and Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Background: Dmitriev is a Russian national who was appointed CEO of Russia's sovereign wealth fund, the Russian Direct Investment Fund (RDIF), when it was founded in 2011. Dmitriev reported directly to Putin and frequently referred to Putin as his, quote, boss. RDIF has co-invested in various projects with UAE Sovereign Wealth Fund. Dmitriev regularly interacted with Nader a senior advisor to UAE Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed, in connection with our DIS dealing with the United Arab Emirates. Putin wanted Dmitry to be in charge of both the financial and the political relationship between Russia and the Gulf states, in part because Dmitry had been educated in the West and spoke English fluently. Nader considered Dmitry to be Putin's interlocutor in the Gulf region and would relay Dmitry's view directly to Crown Prince Mohammed. Nader developed contact with both U.S. presidential campaign during the 2016 election and kept Dmitry abreast of his efforts to do so. According to Nader, Dmitry said that his and the government of Russia preference was for candidate Trump to win and asked Nader to assist him in meeting members of the Trump campaign. The next sentence has been redacted grand jury. Nader did not introduce Dmitry to anyone associated with the Trump campaign before the election. The following paragraph, the full paragraph, has been redacted grand jury. Eric Prince is a businessman who had relationship with various individuals associated with the Trump campaign, including Steve Bannon, Donald Trump Jr., and Roger Stone. Prince did not have a formal role in the campaign, although he offered to host a fundraiser for Trump and sent unsolicited policy paper on issues such as foreign policy, trade, and Russian election interference to Bannon. After the election, Prince frequently visited transition offices at Trump Tower, primarily to meet with Bannon, but on occasion to meet Michael Flynn and others. Prince and Bannon would discuss, inter alia, foreign policy issues and Prince's recommendation regarding who should be appointed to fill key national security positions. I want you to listen to this again. Prince and Bannon would discuss foreign policy issue and Prince's recommendation regarding who should be appointed to fill key national security position. Although Prince was not formally affiliated with the transition, Nader, next word redacted grand jury, received assurances, next word redacted grand jury, that the incoming administration considered Prince a trusted associate. Kirill Dmitriev post-election contact with the incoming administration. If you're following this reading of the report, all those Russians are now involved in dictating what happened to the new administration, in case you weren't following. Soon after midnight on election night, Dmitriev's message, next word is investigative technique. So I would read it as follows. Soon after midnight on election night, Dmitriev message investigative technique, who was traveling to New York to attend the 2016 World Chess Championship. The next sentence also has been redacted, investigative technique. Dmitry Peskov, the Russian Federation press secretary, was also attending the World Chess Championship. The whole remaining part of this paragraph has been redacted, investigative technique. Approximately 2:40 a.m. on November 9, 2016, news reports stated that candidate Clinton had called President-elect Trump to concede. The next two sentences has been investigative technique. The next possible thing I can read is wrote to Dmitriev, quote, Putin has won, end of quote. In case you weren't paying attention, the last sentence I just read, although most of the paragraph were redacted, most of the whole paragraph was redacted investigative technique, but the only thing that's left to read is Putin has won. The election was held in the United States of America, but the celebration is Putin has won. Later that morning, Dmitriev contacted Nader, who was in New York, to request a meeting with the quote people in the incoming administration as soon as possible in light of the quote great result, end of quote. He asked Nader to convey to the incoming administration that quote we want to start rebuilding the relationship in whatever is a comfortable pace for them. We understand all of the sensitivity and are not in a rush, end of quote. Dmitriev and Nader had previously discussed Nader introducing him to the contact Nader had made within the Trump campaign. Dmitriev also told Nader that he would ask Putin for permission to travel to the United States, where he would be able to speak to media outlets about the positive impact of Trump's election and the need for reconciliation between the United States and Russia. Later that day, Dmitriev flew to New York. Peskov was separately traveling to attend the chess tournament. Dmitriev invited Nader to the opening of the tournament and noted that if there was, quote, a chance to see anyone key from Trump camp, end of quote, he, quote, would love to start building for the future, end of quote. Dmitriev also asked Nader to invite Kushner to the event so that he, Dmitriev, could meet him. Nader did not pass along Dmitriev's invitation to anyone connected with the incoming administration. Although one World Chess Federation official recalled hearing from an attendee that President-elect Trump had stopped by the tournament, the investigation did not establish that Trump or any campaign or transition team official attended the event. And the president's written answer denied that he had. Nader stated that Dmitriev continued to press him to set up a meeting with transition officials and was particularly focused on Kushner and Trump Jr. Dmitriev told Nader that Putin would be very grateful to Nader and that a meeting would make history. According to Nader, Dmitriev was very anxious to connect with the incoming administration and told Nader that he would try other routes to do so besides Nader himself. Nader did not ultimately introduce Dmitry to anyone associated with the incoming administration during Dmitrys' post-election trip to New York. In early December 2016, Dmitry again broached the topic of meeting incoming administration official with Nader in January or February. Dmitry sent Nader a list of publicly available quotes of Dmitry speaking positively about Donald Trump, in case they were helpful, end of quote. The interference of Russia in the 2016 presidential election is not a side show. It's not an event that any patriot American would consider unimportant. And notice I said patriot American. And for those who think if they were born in the United States, they're automatically a patriot, no. Being American does not equal being a patriot. So I want to be sure when I say patriot, I mean patriot, not American. Yes, you ought to be American first, but being American does not make anyone a patriot. And there seems to be this confusion, especially with my fellow Republicans who believe that they were born here, their parents were born here, their grandparents were born here, so that automatically made them a patriot. Being born here only makes one an American, a citizen. Patriot is an individual who would do anything and everything to protect what he or she has as freedom and any asset that guarantees that freedom. That means the Constitution, which is the most important document, which makes it all the more critical for anyone who is a patriot to have an issue with what had happened rather in the 2016 presidential election. The argument we have here in the reading of the Mueller report has nothing to do with being Democrat or being Republican, but it has to do with having individuals defending the fact that an enemy, the fiercest enemy, the number one enemy of the country, attack our institution. And yet we have legislators, yes, Republican legislators who are making all sort of excuses to make the attack seems like it was nothing. It was unimportant. We shouldn't provide that much. We shouldn't really make it that much of a big deal. In fact, that's exactly what they're saying about the Democrat trying to get to the bottom of the matter. It is that big of a deal. And that helped me to understand really where those Republican legislators are. Because it doesn't suffice to say you are a patriot. I couldn't care less about the word. The devil says he's a Christian. Does that make him a Christian? The Bible says words without action are worthless. So you can claim all you want that you are a patriot, but are you? It doesn't take a genius to understand that a patriot ought to put aside everything, sacrifice everything in order to preserve what is the most important, the Constitution of the United States. To hesitate to do so, to try to explain your way around it, to try to justify your action for not doing so, clearly tell you you are no patriot. As such, we have today a whole party, a whole political party, both legislators and constituents alike, making all kinds of excuses in order to protect an individual who not only do not care about the country, does everything that benefits him, but at the same time eroding our democracy. Now, legislators are making argument to make it okay. Constituents are making argument to make it okay, and they all feel good about it because all that matters is, well, is whatever they have in mind. There is no if, there is no but, there is no supposition, it is not someone's mindset that says Russia interfered. It's documented, it's provided to us in two very heavy documents by the Special Counsel. And we're reading volume 1 for you, and volume 2 contain even more damning information of an individual, the Trump camp, collaborating very closely with America's #1 enemy. Throughout the whole process, Donald Trump has been saying it's a witch hunt. And all the people who supported him, blindly following him, repeating him, echoing him, it's a witch hunt. I haven't even started volume 2. In volume 1 alone, in fact, even before the release of the report, if you've been watching, if you've been reading my publication, you would have been well ahead of the curve, knowing that, in fact, Donald Trump did indeed sleep with our enemy. Now, the Republican legislators, they are master at deception. I also wrote about that very extensively. They masters of deception. They can sell you the moon, although they have no idea where the moon is, and they have. And unfortunately, the Republican constituents are very predisposed to accept those lies. They are naive, they are gullible. And this is not me saying, they've proven it over and over and over, and I also wrote extensively about that. Now, it is a sad story for two reasons. Number one, to have a whole political party, millions of people, could not bring themselves to understand, to have a logical mind to understand that those things could not have happened in the void. Because in the history of the United States of America, never have any individual bidding for the presidency, the highest office in the land, surrounding himself with all those individuals, either Russian or Russian related, are number one enemy. In total, over 100 people doing the bidding for Russia, part of the Trump team. In fact, 17 of them were very high up in the Trump team. Never before. So you can spin it however you want, but any one country that has a system to protect the national security of the country would not simply turn a blind eye to having a candidate surrounding himself with 100 Russian and Russian leaning individuals inside the campaign, and for our national security agencies to simply say, oh well, that's why I said this program is only for patriot, because unless you're patriot, you cannot understand that, because all you're interested in is defending a political party. So you would not be of any use to the conversation. You cannot bring any contribution if you're already in that position that you are a fanatic, a partisan, not a patriot. And again, being an American doesn't make one a patriot. So the country was attacked by our number one enemy. There is no debate there. It's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. But Republican constituents, they got duped, misled, deceived by their legislators, deceived by places like Fox, Rush Limbaugh, because those people, they make their money based on the gullibility, on the naiveness, on the ignorance of their audiences. Because as dumb as they can keep their audience, that's as long as they can keep their job and make money. So they have no incentive of educating their audience in order to come to understand really what had happened to the country. But instead, they feeding that audience false information, false narrative, and taking a straw man, the Democrats, to say, you see, the problem is the Democrats. The Democrats did not attack the country. Russia did. But you know what else? Donald Trump team collaborated with Russia team. So we cannot point to the Democrat as the problem. And that's what legislators are very good at. They master of deception. They take the conversation, the factual aspect of the conversation, and they muddy the issue, and they tell you, look at the other way because it's the other political party that's doing that. Russia did not attack the United States. The Democrats did not attack the United States. Russia did. Now, it would be one thing that you have an enemy that attacks us and we all unite to defend against that enemy. But that's not really what happened. Russia used a willing participant, the Trump team, the Trump election team, and infiltrated all aspects of our government. If you are a patriot and that doesn't bother you, stop saying that you are a patriot, because you are no longer a patriot. Because a patriot cannot possibly be looking at all that and say, doesn't matter. You cannot be a patriot and behave that way. So when you hear someone say, I'm a patriot, don't take the person's words. Watch the person's action. Because anyone can claim anything. But what makes the situation even worse for America, you now have the Republican legislators. Those are people who are supposed to understand the impact of what happened in 2016. They're supposed to understand it because you elected them, saying that I trust that you have better sense than I. You know what the Republican legislators are advancing? It doesn't matter that Russia interfered in our election. It doesn't matter that the Donald Trump team collaborate with Russia. It doesn't matter any of that, because the investigation wasn't supposed to happen. Those are the individuals you Republican elected to represent you. A few of my fellow Republican ask, why do Democrats always think that Republicans are stupid? It is an answer we will provide when we return next time. Join me again in a couple of hours, in which we may actually have to continue this conversation. This is serious, and it's worth talking about, because our country is going through a time, and we have millions of people who have no understanding whatsoever that the country was attacked and something ought to be done. And it doesn't matter who was collaborating. Yes, if the President of the United States was collaborating, your job is not to defend the President, because the President is not worth defending. Because if he could not see that it was not okay to do that, then your job as a patriot is to defend the country, to defend the Constitution, not the President of the United States. The President is just a man we elect to do a job, and if that individual does not fit the job, that individual ought to be taken out of office. And at this point, it's been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that Donald Trump has sold the country to the highest bidder. That was an update through the prism of common sense. Join us again at the top of the hour. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. Send us comments, criticism, suggestion, or simply let us know how we're doing. Thank you for watching. See you in just a bit. The Fourth Branch podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website, located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. weekday.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the fourth branch, live from New York. Good day.